You are listening to Ice Cream for Breakfast with your hosts, Tara Chase and Kevin Hansen. Do you know what that means? Well, there's a great guest lined up. So sit back and enjoy some ice cream.
I was going to ask you, I have a sister that's married to an Ellsworth.
Yeah, they're all related.
They're all related.
Yeah. Where does your sister live?
Well, now they live in Pennsylvania. My brother-in-law is Navy. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ellsworth was, is this being recorded now?
Go ahead. We can always edit.
Talking.
That's what I always say.
Ellsworth, it was, I think, the first the first leader to be killed in the Revolutionary War.
Wow. Wow.
Really good thing to be proud of.
Yeah, how do you remember? Why do you want to be remembered by that, right?
I died first.
The Ellsworth family. No,
or
don't
maybe
say
it was
that.
a Civil War. Let me look into that. You might want to edit this part out.
Okay. We want the right history on the right channel.
Or
I love
it. It was actually the Korean War, but we're
no, goodness.
It's not the
She's
Korean
like, I know
War.
it's one of the two. That's
so
exciting.
let's just go.
Go ahead, Kevin.
This is very casual.
Okay.
And we like to have fun.
Okay.
And I am random.
Okay. Well, I do believe that.
That's not his first name, but we'll just give it to you for today.
So our guest today is Julie Ellsworth. Julie Ellsworth. Julie and I have known each other for 30 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
They're only 31, so you guys are just childhood babies.
Anyway, Julie, we're grateful that you can sit down with us for a little bit today. Julie is...
I'm going to introduce our live guests too, just in case they want to say anything during the show. So I'll just have them. We have Sophie and we have Kendall and we have JD with us too here at the Treasurer's office in the Capitol building. So do you guys want to pick up your mic and say hi to our audience? We just at least will get you to hear your voices.
Just say hi.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, just say hi.
I'm Sophie.
That's Sophie.
Hi, I'm Kendall.
And Kendall.
I am JD.
And we're so glad you guys are here. Welcome.
Okay.
So, Julie, I know you've had a lifetime. Were you a teacher
at some point? Yeah. That's
so Tara's also was a teacher.
Oh, okay.
That's what we have in common, Julie. Now we're twins.
Yeah.
You've had a lifetime of public service, and just kind of go through what drove you to that, and what have you done in those arenas?
I have been here. I am considered to be the Quasimodo of the Capitol building because I have had an official office on every floor of the Capitol building.
Oh, cool.
You know, with the different changes and the different add-ons and stuff like that, it turned out that I have been, had something to do in the Capitol building on every floor. And I was elected in a long time ago as a representative. And that's when you knew me. And I had tiny children. I think the first time I ran, that my oldest was almost 4 and my baby was 9 months. And I thought it would be a good time to run.
She's elected.
I was encouraged to run by people because I was always involved in politics because my husband was U.S. attorney, which is a very political appointment. He was Reagan's U.S. attorney. And so, I've always been involved. But then when they said, well, you should run because we need some representation here, I thought, well, sure, it's a good time, mom with little children. And as a matter of fact, even when I served in the legislature, my second term, I had another child, not at the legislature, but so I have 3 children, and that was quite a
clean up on the aisle.
Yeah.
That's why she was on every floor.
So, yeah, right. We don't want this one. But it was an interesting process because I was elected to leadership in the House of Representatives in the legislature, and I was a mom with young children. Arguably, I was a young mom, and I destroyed the age curve by, the average age was about 70. And, there I am. I think I was 34.
Wow.
And, it was just kind of like, I was just this anomaly. And and then, to have a child while you're serving. And then I was saying, like, I really, I'm nursing the baby and everything, and then I had to have her on the floor sometimes. And, I mean, it was just almost fun to watch the reaction. But it was a good thing for everybody, I think. I was elected to House leadership, like I said, which, again, I'm a young mom.
Mm-hmm.
I do not fit the prototype of what is going on, but I love to research and I love issues and I love to defend my position.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that my peers thought that of me, and they knew that I was somebody that always researched stuff, and they did elect me to be their caucus chairman. And for 2 terms, I was elected again, reelected. And that is not as fun as serving, because caucus chairman, you have to take care of a bunch of elected people.
Right.
And they, I would rather, I loved what I learned there. And interestingly, that I did serve contemporary with Brad Little. Brad Little at the time was on the Senate side in their Senate leadership. And so every morning we would have joint House Senate leadership meetings and, meet back and forth. It's interesting to see us together here as elected constitutional officers. But so then I served primarily my committee that I was on was overseeing the functions of the Treasury. And I quite liked that. And I didn't know how much I'd like it, but my background is I'm a teacher, a middle school age teacher, and I quite love teaching. And if you really want to find out about the needs of society, go teach school, and
Amen.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked the math and science, those subjects. And so then when I got to the legislature, I'm sitting there, and it's just all these laws we have to evaluate on how to invest idle monies for the state so that we can leverage them. So while we're not using them, we earn, and we did massive rewrites on a lot of the statutes, brought them up to date during my tenure, and I found it fascinating. The treasurer at the time was Lydia Justice Edwards, and she took a liking to me because she probably thought, where is this young mom? What are you? I mean, she did, but I also, I was very hooked on those issues and would fight my position, and, and she liked that. And so she invited me to go with her to New York to be to secure the credit rating for the state with the bond rating agents there in New York. And I thought, I am so hooked. I quite loved it. I love how issues that people can talk about casually and then ultimately gets put into law and debated, in a bill and stuff. I love how, you have to even be sensitive to what that is going to do for people that are looking at your fiscal health in New York City. And a credit rating for the state is very important, because the higher your credit rating is, we are AAA now since I came in. No,
Good for you.
It is true. But if we have a AAA, then everything else in government is based on, here's the benchmark, and how many points down are you from the benchmark. And so it is definitely a help for local taxpayers to have a good credit rating. You can, it's less expensive to borrow money. And, it's just very much an important, quiet thing that happens in government. So I was quite in love with it. I went with her and I sat with rating agencies, and I tried to explain why people said they wouldn't pay the bill on the floor of the Senate. And, and I was defending different things that they'd heard, but it made me aware of the fact that they are watching, that, people are not haphazard about how their money is managed. And so I thought, if the Treasury ever came up, I'd want to be the treasurer.
Wow.
And then, Ron,
so cool.
Do you want me to stop talking?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I could throw a random thing. When you said you were on the floor with the babies, I thought of this joke of Jim Gaffigan, if anybody's a fan of
I know who he
him.
is.
They said, what is it like to have a 6th baby? He goes, imagine you're drowning and then someone throws you a baby. Anyway, that's what I thought of.
She's like,
supposed to
I
laugh at
caught
this
the
point.
baby.
She's just a delight. This daughter of mine has graduated from college, political science. She's very much
She was listening when they say that you
I
learn
think
an embryo. She's
all
the
that kind
proof.
of stuff. I'm pretty sure that's true about this embryo learning, because she's very much those issues, has an opinion about issues. And
She heard everyone, including her
she's
mama.
good. But and then the other children, they're good too. But they're when you have your, we have good
Rachel
children.
and Chapman, you're all right. But
Oh, thanks.
You're
Rachel
listening.
Chapman. But I did wonder what it was like to be in public service when you have small children, because I was focused on fiscal reorganization of the statutes and stuff at the time that I was serving. And my little boy that was 9 months when I first started, I think he was pushing about 5, maybe 6, and he was on his first soccer team. And he came home to me, and I said, "So how's your coach?" It's like his friend's mom and everything. And he says, "Well, Mom, she doesn't know what an independent public body politic corporate is." And I thought, I have marred my children for life. They think these terms are normal, but that was just the term of the day, and it actually has come back in the 2025, is a very important concept. But I thought, yeah, you should not know that term.
She knows how to dribble the ball, and she knows how to teach you coordination.
But, it does give a different perspective, because another time he asked his little friend, so when does your mom put her signs up? Because your name is all over the city. And, that blue Ellsworth sign, it just was permanent structure there.
And a family project.
It was always the family very much involved, and friends, and putting up those signs does take, it's manual labor, but it's always fun memories, of doing it with my children. Because, of course, they'd never whined. But, I do think that it's good. You never know what you're doing and how it will impact your children. But I think that it was a good impact for them to care about issues. And, some are more outspoken than others. Some are wrong. No.
Of course.
Of course, I'm always the judge of that. But then, ironically, at the time when I first was elected, I had a chairman of state affairs, again, that was overseeing all of this state treasurer's office. And chairman of state affairs is a very powerful committee in the House. And I loved him. His name was Ron Crane. And then eventually that treasurer, Lydia Justice Edwards, retired, and Ron Crane ran for her position and won. So Ron Crane, my chairman, was the treasurer. And I thought, if Ron ever retires, then I will run for it. And then Ron stayed in for 22 years. I'm like, geez, Ron, you're going to die in office. No, he's still just a delightful friend.
Yeah.
But, he did decide to retire. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to run. And I did, and it worked out. It's very different to run statewide, but I found that I have done things like I've been a facilitator for conflicts. Sometimes I also cause conflicts, but there is a direct need for facilitators. Like, for example, if land use issues are being very hot, they often hire a facilitator. So I did those kind of things throughout the state, and I noticed that when I ran for treasurer, there were these little mini campaigns going on for me in different spots of the state, and it was those people, that you'd work with. So I think people often ask, well, what do you do to run? And I say, you be a good citizen.
Right.
You help people. You build friendships. You be a human being. And particularly at this time, be a human being, and I'm not talking about Facebook and social media, which I can get pretty good at, but it's like that human being thing. To this day, I know that in Teton County, I had a full campaign going on that I never asked anyone to do. And so that's how you run for office.
Okay.
You be a person.
Build relationships.
Yeah.
I like it.
So what exactly are the responsibilities of the treasurer in the state?
The state treasurer. I have all of state.
She's like, I got to pull out my job description.
No, this is accounting. This is not my
Okay.
job.
She's got a notebook, and she's like, here's what I'm doing.
So the state treasurer is a constitutional officer. There's 7 of them that are, and we're elected statewide. The governor is one of them. The secretary of state is one of them. The attorney general. We have specific duties that are spoken to in the Constitution when it was written. And let me just put a plug in for the Constitutional Convention in the state of Idaho. This is where I get boring and uninvited. So brilliant they were. Now I sound like Yoda.
We like Yoda.
Because they knew to separate certain duties and problems that exist in government is when those duties are just kind of merged all together. For example, Secretary of State, his duty is the elections of the state. That's not the governor's duty. It's his duty. He oversees that. He does the whole thing. Granted, you need to have the governor sign any legislation. So it wouldn't be proper for the governor to come and tell how I want this election done this way. Nor would it not, and I don't mean to make it sound like that he would ever do that, but that is constitutional. And so I have all the money in the state of Idaho, so you better be nice to me. And by constitution, it's siloed.
I like it. You have signed for me to do this. But it's also delegating. Like everyone has a proper working relationship with theirs.
It has silos on it. So like, I would not expect the Secretary of State to come over here and say, you really ought to start doing this with the way that we're handling the money. Right. Nor would I expect the governor, or would they want me to. You know.
No one can bribe you, Julie.
No,
That's good.
It's like, it's really.
She has all the money.
I know. Yeah. She's like, don't bribe me.
And I do have all the money. No, but that is a constitutional thing. Now, the beauty of that is that I have the controller who is also a constitutional officer, and he lives across the street. His name is Brandon Mitchell. Oh, no. It's not Brandon Wolf. Brandon Wolf. Okay, Brandon Mitchell is a representative that I work with. Okay, so anyway, why do you need a controller and why do you need a treasurer? Well, the treasurer has all the money, and that's similar to a bank. So you would think of me as the accounts receivable for the state. Yep. The controller spends the money all day long, all day and night. So basically he's doing the accounting portion of it and paying the bills. Now, the check and balance that we have is that I need to match what he says at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And isn't that beautiful? Mm-hmm. Now you would never want us to have the same computer system, because then you get one computer guy that can go in the back door of both. I mean, it's just a real divide in responsibilities. And I have listened, I'm involved with other treasurers and go to national meetings periodically, and when they are pushing up against problems and that they're trying to resolve things that have been happening in their state, typically it's because there has not been a clear divide in some of those functions. So again, I quite love the Constitution of our state and how vivid they were about duties need to be siloed this way. Mm-hmm. I like all of our constitutional officers. I can work well with them, but don't ever tell me what to do with the money. The legislature appropriates it, and they are the ones that give our priority. And if they have legally said it can be released this way, then we'll do it that way. And I don't tell me where to invest it. Mm-hmm. It shields you from all that conflict. Mm-hmm. Because I have the statutes that say how money can be invested, and I will follow those. So to that point, last year we returned $535 and change $1 million back to Idaho taxpayers in interest earnings. Wow. So if money is idle at the time, it's earmarked for spending. Earmark is a term of art that I don't mean for it to sound like that, right? But if the legislature has designated the money for a certain cause and it doesn't need to occur until July, and it's November, well, then that whole period of time, the professionals in my office will manage it and will return money earning back to them. To me, it's like my guiding principle as an elected person, is what would my dad say? My dad is no longer living, but the years that I was in the legislature, if there was a really boring debate, I would call him and we would chat, and he quite loved all the stuff about the legislature, but he is my true test of worth, because why are they doing that? And
that was what pops into your mind.
You just cannot, can this pass his test? Mm-hmm. And, I feel like that when I make decisions, I can do that. What would my dad say? Why the heck are you guys? But when I look at the interest earnings, what would my dad say? He would say, well, why, if the money's sitting there, why don't we just give it back to the people? Well, it's going to be spent. And so while it's not being spent, I decided to help. It does help Idaho taxpayers to get that money returned back. It becomes a fund that they can spend for purposes and lower costs of interest earnings. So the treasurer does that. And I also have an unclaimed property division, which is people's lost money. Mm-hmm.
I actually saw or heard your commercial.
Did you really?
I looked it up, and I had lost money.
Yeah,
I was hoping it was like $5,000, and it was
uncareful.
like $300.
I thought you were going to say $3.
Like, hey,
$3.
We don't put the amounts. We put a range, and maybe JD, you can help me on the ranges. I think you go up to $1 to $50, and then $50 to $100.
website, it'll say between $0 and $1, or between $1 and $5, or less than $20, and then once it gets to $100, it'll just say over 100.
Okay, so let's just talk about that for a minute, because if you posted how much money
Mm-hmm.
someone needed to get,
Okay.
who's going to scam you? I mean, everybody out the wazoo.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that 100 and above, we've had $1 million claims. We've had not uncommon. Blackfoot, Idaho, there was a $30,000 one. Was it $80,000 the other year? There's some.
How does
North-
somebody lose $1 million?
And not know.
Oh,
remember?
and
Right.
that's the question we'd
Oops.
ask. Well, they like you
Business owner.
who forgot. No, and I've had
I
unclaimed
lost
property.
$300. So.
No, it typically is that you have forgotten that you had a deposit that was due to you, and currently the younger generation, they tend to have telecommunication deposits that they made, like for cell phones and stuff, that they forgot that they were
Right,
owed,
like in
and
the
so we're
wallet.
starting to
Mhm.
see a lot of that show up. But you could be a beneficiary of a life insurance policy that you weren't aware of.
Oh, it's true.
And, so just be very nice to everybody you know.
There you go. You might be.
Yeah.
You might
What
be
is-
calling Julie's office, and
It's-
JD's like,
yeah.
"You're $1 to $3. You're the
like,
1 to 3.
You hit.
You
the
did it.
jackpot.
Good for you."
And what is the website for that?
yourmoney.idaho.gov. And it is a government website. We do not allow it. If anybody ever says that, well, we found some money for you on our website, maybe they were looking around, but you put your name in and it will tell you what funds you might or might not have. You can also aggregate it, but you never have to pay to do this. And if somebody says that they can do this for you for a fee, they are a scammer.
Mm-hmm.
Our state does not allow that. In other states, they do allow a third party to help you. And it leads to,
Scamming.
it does.
They
It
probably get
leads to problems.
30% of your dollar. You
Yeah.
end up with.
It doesn't make it a
cents.
clean process. So it's our duty to advertise.
Got it.
And to go, we found JD and I, we kind of go on the road, and whenever we're visiting, conventions or whatever, you can just watch the numbers of how many claims people are making, because, they have to, they just need to feel like it's not a scam, because I think it sounds like a scam.
Okay.
So they have to hear that the state of Idaho has their seal on it, and here's that
Yep.
treasurer.
Yeah.
So
Well, because you have to put in your personal information
You do.
in order to get it.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure it's a legit website.
it is legitimate for anybody listening out there, and I will put my name to it, and it has a .gov website. Of course, now people scam on all that, but this is
Yes.
a legitimate thing. There's $280 million in our fund right now.
Okay.
So could you guys get claiming it, please? Yeah. Could you get on the stick?
She's like, "I want to give you money."
Yeah, I know.
It's
like
a birthday. It's your
like being-
birthday,
I
which
call
is
it the
going to be fun
Santa
to talk
Claus.
about.
It's the Santa Claus
Santa, so it's
division.
Christmas.
Oh,
Okay.
I have $1 million for you.
How much do you get?
Yeah. So it's
See, I
fun.
got another joke, but I'll forego the joke. We are limited with your time, so I don't want to overstate it. But so I saw you here a couple months ago for the Revolutionary War exhibit, and you were talking about your role in America 250, and what are the plans for the state, or what? And I will also talk about the ambassador program.
Oh, okay.
So what are the plans?
And what is America 250?
I know.
Let's
start with
there.
America 250. America is going to celebrate its 250th birthday,
Happy
which is signed in the
birthday.
Declaration next 2026. So July 4th, 2026 is the big day. But in conjunction with that, all over the United States, every state is putting together things leading up to that.
That's
things,
cool.
Celebratory things to recognize. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
The last time they did something like this was in 1976.
And I remember that really well.
I remember
wasn't there
it
yet.
too, but I will not get to see
All
the
of
next
you weren't
one.
here either.
So you guys, I think you're going to see the next one, and please pay attention to how much spirit you felt in this room. No. But it is a big deal. It is a chance to come together. It is coming from the federal level, the 13 originally colony states, or what are they?
New Hampshire, New Jersey.
They're always
New
very
Mexico.
active on it, but we all own it. America 250 in Idaho is what we've created. It's an organization. You can go online. JD, do you know the website for it online? Because I always just scan the code. But
I believe it's America
.gov.
We can look it up and then we can post it on our show notes.
I wrote it here one time, so it's America 250 and America250.idaho.gov.
Okay.
And see, that QR code threw me because I never say URLs anymore because you have a QR code.
You have a QR code for everything. That's right.
This is awkward on the radio. It's QR code. So it's America250.idaho.gov. If you go onto that website, you'll see 3 pillars, and the celebration pillar is one that I'm involved in, and that's the first thing on the website that comes up. What can you do to get involved in this celebration? So click on that, and then you'll see some options there that would allow you to say, I want to be an ambassador, and that's what I want you to do. Click on I want to be an ambassador. And that is what I have been doing, and as well as JD and Kendall and Sophie. You know, it is so fun and requires a lot of energy. The legislature actually put me in a piece of legislation. The treasurer, by position, is to be on this oversight of America 250 in Idaho. And an ambassador is someone who wants to help spread the word. So we have created, I think we have just under 600 ambassadors now signed up, but we're just trying to spread the word and ask people to be involved. This is not something that we just want. What do you want to do?
That's why we're here. We're helping. We want to be ambassadors. Kevin and I are going to put the click because I'm on the website right now.
You know, you come up with ideas.
So
and
cool.
then I was on the steps of the Capitol. I think you were there. Yeah, and we
with
had
your dog dressed as Paul Revere. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Will you say that again? Because I heard this story.
With my dog dressed as Paul Revere. But I also did the Spuddy Buddy thing, and I dressed him.
Right, yeah.
Dressed him as Spud Revere. He is at my house right now.
That's awesome.
I know. He was so well loved. And all of that I did because I couldn't have Paul Revere live
The actual
on a
horse
to run around. When actually is a long story because I think they ultimately okayed it. But so my reaction to that was, well, then I'm going to take my Spuddy Buddy in my office and I'm going to turn him into Paul Revere. And he was so cute. And he's at home right now because this is what has happened.
It's the growing season.
It's the growing season.
For those that are listening, I'm assuming it's one of the little and medium-sized
It's big size.
potato stuffed animal.
Yeah.
With
Julie doesn't do small things.
This is a big size. Okay, and actually to that point,
Yes.
when I've
seen the little ones on the tables.
Yeah, but this is the big
Right,
one.
okay.
So I didn't tell the Historical Society leader, Jan, that I was bringing
Going
my
to do that.
Spuddy Buddy, and I
Okay.
was on the program.
Okay.
So I brought him up, and it was the size of like if you've rolled up a dead body in a
Oh,
blanket.
lovely. Okay.
So
We're
that's
the
how big
treasurer.
it is.
We're not the coroner.
I just wanted to give you the relativity of that for all those
Gotcha.
times that you do that.
Yes.
But, you know, I asked people, what's your Paul Revere story? And then they say, oh, she did the Spuddy Buddy and she's got her dog. And, you know, people recreated Paul Revere's ride. I got Legos created like Paul Revere,
That's
you know, and all these
cool.
kinds of things. As you turn that into my office or to whatever place we put on the document, we will save all that information because at the end of this whole celebration, the Idaho Public TV is going to create a movie about what we did.
Oh,
And
cool.
so you become part of that movie. And so that's my ask for everybody, you know, just be part of it. Yeah, here's it. Let's see. There was a...
Is there?
Oh, my word. I see the picture of him. Okay. He's so cute and handsome.
Oh, Spud Revere?
Yeah. I'm going to
Okay,
get that
so-
picture
so
and
the-
I'm going to stick that on our website.
It's on our Facebook page, but
Okay.
let me just tell
I
you.
love it.
That
That's
I
cute.
did, it was something
Thanks,
that I
sweetie.
didn't know would create such fun for people. But people
Sure.
want their picture with him. So there's the
Yes.
governor standing there, and people want a picture with Spud Revere. So then we talked to the Potato Commission, and we are going to have Spuddy Buddy dressed up like the founding fathers.
I was just
and
going to say, I
yeah.
did the Fit One race and the
Yeah.
famous potato race, and they always have Spuddy, the dressed up potato
Oh, does he?
at all the events.
Okay, well.
So he should be able to come.
Right now, Spud Revere is sitting in my kitchen because
'Kay.
I am developing George Washington.
Wow, washing tater.
And he is to be unveiled as soon as he gets his buttons sewn on his.
Wow.
It's in his military outfit.
I really like this.
Do they get nervous when
Does
you
he
bring
get
like
curly
cheddar
white
cheese
hair?
home or
I know.
the
Does
oven's
Does he look like the
on?
dollar bill?
No. Oh, well, you know, I
That
don't
would
want
be
to
kind of a-
spoil it. When I
oh.
unveil him, I will let all
Okay.
the ambassadors
Okay.
know. But we will also have the Trader Tater, which is
Trader
Benedict Arnold.
Okay.
And we, and I
There's
think,
a whole collection. on
and
the
next
Capitol
week,
steps.
next month, we're for sure going to do Spudgeman Franklin. And imagine that, the potato with the skull hair.
Oh, that's going to be great.
It's great.
It's going to be great.
But yeah, so it has turned into something that I think really motivates people, and that is a portion of it. But my whole desire, well, my big hairy goal is that everybody in Idaho felt like they owned it and they contributed. And that's what the ambassador thing is doing. We're reaching out, organizing, getting counties to be ambassador counties, getting
Okay.
cities to be ambassador cities. Do you want to add anything?
yeah, what are some of the events that you guys have been
Kendall
a
and
part
Sophie
of?
and JD, they get to sit there
Yeah.
and stuff.
Oh, they're all
buttons
excited.
in baggies.
Well, I
or-
mean, so far, like I'm imagining there's fireworks show.
oh,
and
there's things that people will be doing all over the
Okay.
state.
Yeah, and I'm on the website, and it seems to be filling up with
If-
all the different task force projects that are involved or
Yeah.
will be involved. So
So the task
That's
force
exciting.
is the right hand column, but we're the celebration column.
I
Which,
like
if you go
it.
to the homepage, the celebration is where you can get involved as an individual. Did you have a
Is
question?
there a thank you?
yes.
Question.
Raise your hand
Get
next
involved
time.
right here.
Is there like a hashtag if somebody wants to take a picture of something like that and post it so that
Yes.
it's seen by everybody? What should they do?
You do. There is a Facebook
I still
page.
don't understand what a hashtag is, but I mean I
You
understand what
don't.
it is, but
It's a
I don't
way to
really
get-
understand it.
I'll
It is a way
hashtag
to
it.
everybody just Google a hashtag and then everything
Yeah.
comes up under it. But I'm not I mean, this is stuff that I'll have my wonderful interns who are sitting here next to us watching all
Love
this
it.
unveil thinking, why am I working for her? But there is a Facebook page right now. It's America 250 and Idaho Ambassadors. And on that, it gives you how you can enter stuff. You can just enter it on that Facebook page. There's an email address there. But truthfully, you know, the Paul Revere stuff will end at the end of this month, but anything you do is just something that I'm collecting. You know, the video of the people reenacting Paul Revere with a real horse and a rider, and all the little kids are dressed up. You know, like that is just a great thing because we are making the history. We are, and that's what we're recording. We're not just, you know, going to read about this.
I have a name you need to do something with, you guys. Caesar Rodney. Do you know who Caesar Rodney is?
Is he the guy that paints murals?
No. Caesar Rodney is actually on a horse on the Delaware Quarter.
Oh,
And
I was
everyone
way off.
thinks it's Paul Revere. But the story
But
of
there's
Caesar
five
Rodney.
of them.
Five.
Paul Revere's.
Paul Revere.
Except they don't have the same name, Paul Revere.
So Caesar Rodney was a delegate from Delaware. Anyway, he had cancer, and he always covered his throat with a scarf. And John Adams said he was one of the ugliest men he'd ever seen.
Well, John Adams should talk.
So he was out fighting, came home after weeks, and a writer came to his house and said they're voting for independence tomorrow.
Wow.
And they want a unanimous vote. He got on his horse and rode all night in the rain. And the legend is he approached Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And as he opened the door to go in, they were calling for the vote for Delaware.
Wow.
So if you see the horse, it's not Paul Revere, it's Caesar Rodney. So see if you can do a Caesar salad, something with a
yeah.
potato.
Actually, we should call Delaware and find out what they're doing. Because did you
Yeah.
say all 50 states will be doing and compiling into what they
see,
did for
and
the celebration?
I have asked my Sophie and Kendall, the interns for this office, that they're just digging into that, tracking what other states are doing. There's not a right answer. It's like
'Kay.
everything adds, you know, because
Correct.
we, if there is silence, a vacuum of celebration, then other things become important and it fills that hole. And I just refuse to let that happen. So therefore, I will go home and finish my George Washington George Washington.
Do you find that smaller communities are more into this kind of stuff? Because you think, you look at Melba with their 4th of July every year is big. And
Yeah.
the town I grew up in, Grandview, it's always a big thing, very patriotic. It seems like smaller towns are more into this kind of stuff.
I think that there is a difference with large and small communities. My family, the Ellsworths are from the Cary, Idaho area and Blaine County, Haley, Cary, Haley. And, you know, the parade's there. I just remember taking my children there, and they have boots on the horses. And I just think, this is life. You know, who would want to miss this? You know, there's just very homey, organic type things. I think that they do schedule those celebrations regularly. And I think the larger your town gets, then you have to pull permits and things have to get a little more official. But I believe that the feeling that people have is not being represented because it looks silent, although it is different. Does that make sense? I do believe that there's a great deal of love for our nation.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got to say it out loud, else that silence gets filled with other causes.
Okay, I don't want to cut this short, but we were told 4:30, and
Yes.
I don't want to overstep, but we
We love
appreciate
this.
you
thank
sitting
you.
down.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And
guys.
I just signed up to be an ambassador, so I'm on the list.
You have to wear a 3-pointed hat for the rest
I
of the year.
will. I will
So,
wear a 3-pointed hat. If
you know
if
what?
you
I have a
must.
pattern for that if you need it.
Okay. Okay.
And Kevin, get on the stick there. You need to sign up too. You know, I don't think I've signed up. You know, so I'll see what we're sending them. You do, when you sign up, you do get a monthly call to action.
Asked me if I wanted to get my information, so I clicked yes. So now I'll be able to help share and spread the word.
Any of the people that that it says to contact, that will come right back here to
Okay.
JD, Kendall, and Sophie.
My team,
And thank
right
you
in front
guys.
of us.
Thanks for setting in.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Okay, signing out. You guys are awesome.